In this section, the operative phases for the erection of a building carried out by the M2 system single panels are shown. For operating with the M2 system, the required foundation, either grain beam or surface beds, had to be firstly executed, which due to the minor pressure and the lack of concentrated loads could be smaller than usual and allow an obvious economical saving. The recommended foundation have to foresee anchoring bars will jet out from the foundation for 40 to 50 centimeters and are placed at gaps of 30 to 40 centimeters for the assembling and the junction of the M2 structural panels. During the following stage, the panels are placed in a perfectly vertical position and well aligned by using metal stretches or props and ordinary wooden tables. Subsequently, they are sewed to each other and joined to the anchoring bars for a better cohesion and static continuity. This operation can be executed by special equipment or, in a simpler way, by traditional building tools such as shears, pliers, and so on. The openings for doors and windows can be obtained during the panel output or on the spot by removing the surface in question. All the parts subjected to stresses are reinforced by special flat wire nets. All the structural joints, such as inner and outer angles, connection between walls or between wall and floor, are reinforced by special angle or electro-welded nets for a greater cohesion of the structure. As we've already said, the installation of the floor panel is made extremely easy thanks to its lightness and easy-handedness. These advantages allow a more rapid installation of the floor panel with a reduced expense for labor and building equipment. The stairs panel, whose trays and rises have been shaped according to the dimension required and is supplied ready to be covered, is marked by an extremely easy and fast installation, the schedule of which is much shorter than the time required by any other ordinary stairs. The connection of the wiring and of the other system is carried out quickly and it is absolutely clean. The required chases are made on the polystyrene by a simple hot air jet. Now the connection to pipelines already existing or to be executed becomes an easy operation which does not require demolition and further restoration. If required, the wire net is opened as needed so as to allow the installation of connector boxes for wiring and telephone, pipes, ducts, and so on. The internal and external plaster has the main function of structural element, besides it is an aesthetic traditional finishing. The plaster applied onto the strictly connected walls reinforced by metal nets will turn out to be monolithic. For this reason it is important that the plaster spraying is executed by keeping the schedule and method suggested. Usually a first coat of plaster is sprayed down covering the meshes uniformly. Subsequently, a second coat can be applied for leveling the surface and lastly a possible final layer for finishing. It is necessary that the materials employed for the plaster are good quality and the time aging of the plaster should be respected. The same function of the plaster structural element is the same to the covering casting, upon which a waterproofing protection and roof covering might be laid together with the water outlet system. The building structure is now ready to be finished and completed by laying of internal and external doors and windows, floors, coatings, sanitary fittings, and finally painted or coating in every part. In this section, we are going to see the various operative phases for the realization of a building unit carried out with double panels. The advantages of using the M2 system are already evident from the foundations. In fact, whatever the type of foundation employed, either grade beams or surface beds, dimensions can be reduced thanks to the minor thrusts and to the lack of concentrated loads, thus allowing considerable economy. The recommended foundation foresee anchoring bars of the diameter of 8 to 10 mm jutting out from the foundations for 40 to 15 cm and placed at gaps of 30 to 40 cm so to allow the insertion and the anchoring of M2 structural panels. In the following stage, panels are assembled, aligned and plumbed at the base of the construction. This operation can be carried out by using metal adjusting props and aluminium bars, or even with traditional site materials such as wooden boards or anything else available on the spot. For better cohesion and static continuity, these panels are tied to one another and fixed. This operation can be done by using specific equipment or simply by using traditional tools or for site, such as shears, pliers and so on. The soffit must be internally reinforced to contain the concrete casting, and positioning the reinforce in a proper way, it is possible to get the room for an eventual blind box for rolling shutter. All the structural joints such as angles and orthogonal connections between walls and floors are reinforced inside and outside by special angular electro-welded galvanized wire nets for a greater cohesion and continuity of the structure. In high-risk seismic areas or for particular structural problems, internal reinforcement must be recommended. The concrete casting inside the double panel is carried out in a traditional way. With the M2 system, it can be carried out even in presence of unfavorable climatic conditions. Furthermore, thanks to the high grade of insulation of panels themselves, the aging time of the concrete is much shorter. For a greater compactness and in order to avoid the following air pocket, the concrete can be simply vibrated from outside. The installation of floors by M2 system is very simple thanks to the lightness of the panels and the facility with which they can be angled. Structures such as balconies or ledges are carried out by jutting on the internal floors with a large saving of money and the greatest structural homogeneity. The installation of floors can be carried out both from one deck to another and as covering solution both with span and bearing on the vertical walls. Coverings of any inclination, shape or geometric composition having a flat coat or composite surface can be realized. Of course, the qualities of homogeneity, structural and static continuity of the M2 system are evident in this case too. The positioning of orthogonal walls, slabs and any other element is necessary to anchor the bearing panel can be done at any point by leaving out some anchoring bars or by integrating them whenever required. The installation of the stair panel is very easy. As in the case of foundation, it is necessary to pre-arrange some anchoring bars which, however, can be eventually be inserted or added afterwards. Consisting the flights and landings, the stair panels are supplied ready to be covered and do not require any successive intervention for the creation of steps. Solidity is guaranteed by the fast work which is cast on site but pre-arranged inside the panel, as well as the covering of galvanized steel wire netting. In this case, the inner and outer plaster is limited to be the traditional finishing element, although it has a structural function. Usually, a first coat of plaster is sprayed on until it covers all the meshes in a uniform manner. Then a second coat is applied for leveling the surface. Finally, a final layer can be applied. It is important that all the materials employed for plaster are good quality and the times of aging of plaster are respected during all the various phases. The building structure is now ready to be finished and completed by installing internal and external doors and windows, floors, sanitary fittings and finally painting in every part.